She walked into the interview room wearing a linen shirt and a canvas tote. They laughed. "Are you the coffee lady?" One of them threw a dollar bill at her feet. Another projected a slide mocking her clothes. In the middle of the interview. Then, 10 minutes later, the CEO walked in, looked straight at her, and said, "Madam Chairwoman, I apologize for the wait. What happened next shattered careers and rewrote corporate history." Hi, everyone. Welcome to Alive Stories. Today's story is about a simple woman who was humiliated during her job interview, until the CEO bowed and called her chairwoman. Let's get started. A towering cathedral of glass, steel, and ego. The lobby alone screamed wealth, marble floors, backlit logos, gold-trimmed elevators, and a crystal chandelier enormous enough to crush a small car. This was where titans in $10,000 suits decided the fate of trillion-dollar portfolios. And in walked her. Elena Royce is 39 years old, wearing a clean white linen shirt, cream trousers, flat shoes, and a canvas tote bag over one shoulder. No makeup, no jewelry, calm eyes, steady steps. The kind of woman people overlook until it's too late. As she entered, the room didn't greet her. It assessed her. At the front desk, a receptionist with slick hair and a hollow smile glanced up. Ma'am, delivery staff used the service entrance." Elena didn't flinch. She offered a small, polite smile. "I'm here for the interview. Global VP of Strategy." The receptionist blinked, paused, then pointed toward a side hallway, like sending someone to the janitorial. "Of course. Down that hall, take the left." The message was clear. "You don't belong here." Outside the interview room, the holding area, a half-dozen other candidates lounge nearby. All of them are glossy, expensive, reeking of arrogance. Tom, in a sharp navy suit and red pocket square, leaned toward his friend. Is she here for the job or to refill the water cooler? A woman in designer heels, Madison, whispered just loud enough I think HR mixed up her appointment. Dry cleaning. Maybe another candidate, Brent, Rolex flashing, and pulled out his phone. No way she's serious. Gotta document this. Click. He uploaded the photo to a private group chat called Altera Insiders with the caption, "VP material or linen cosplay. Fail." They laughed. Hard. Then Brent tossed a crumpled dollar bill at Elena's feet. "For your dry cleaning, sweetheart." Elena bent, picked it up, and placed it gently on the counter beside her. Her smile didn't change, but her eye, sharp as glass, didn't miss a thing. Inside the conference room, 3 panelists waited behind a sleek walnut table. Michael Callahan, head of OH, loud, barrel-chested, wearing a $5,000 suit and an even bigger ego. Vanessa Lee, director of ops, red lipstick, perfect posture, smile like a scalpel. Derek Sloan, strategy director, cool eyes, clicking pen, quietly ruthless. When Elena entered, Callahan didn't stand. He raised a brow. "Are you the candidate? Or did you get lost looking for the coffee machine?" Vanessa smirked, barely looking up. "This is how you show up for a VP interview." "Did no one tell you about the dress code?" Derek leaned back in his chair. "Interesting. Let's see if the resume makes up for whatever this is." He gestured to her outfit. Elena sat calmly, placed her tote on the ground, and folded her hands. "I'm happy to begin." But they weren't. Vanessa led off with a condescending question. "Tell us about a time you failed in a leadership role." Elena began describing a complex cross-border merger, but Derek cut her off. "Sorry, I got distracted. That shirt, linen. Right, I didn't know the laundromat had a leadership track." Michael chuckled, then clicked the remote. Behind him, a slide appeared, a photo of a woman in a white linen shirt with a big red X across it. "Company standards, Ms. Royce. You missed them by a few zip codes." Vanessa tossed a 5-page analytics test across the table. "Let's see how fast you can work in that budget blouse." 3 minutes. The test was deliberately impossible, conflicting data. Broken formulas, a trap. Elena calmly took the pen. No complaint, no panic, just quiet focus. When time was called, she slid the paper forward. Vanessa didn't even read it. Wrong energy, wrong presence. "You don't belong here." Callahan grabbed her unopened resume and ripped it in half. "We're done. Don't come back. You're not a leader." You're not even intern material. Vanessa stood. Security will walk you out. Please don't touch anything on your way. Derek smirked. Try HR at the post office. As Elena stood, the three began laughing openly. A security guard by the door chuckled as he clicked his radio. Elevators that way. Ma'am, janitorial uses the service lift. But Elena didn't cry, didn't plead, didn't break. She looked each of them in the eye, smiled softly, chillingly, and said, "Thank you for the clarity." Then she walked out, quietly, powerfully, her canvas tote swinging. What didn't they know? They hadn't just humiliated a job candidate. They had just declared war on the woman who owned their future. And the reckoning was already walking back through the front door. The same elevator Elena had exited minutes ago now took her back to the executive floor, this time escorted by a young man in a navy suit, eyes wide, posture sharp. He didn't speak until the doors closed. They didn't recognize you. Chairwoman, I'm sorry. Elena glanced at him. Calm, still. Don't be. That's exactly why I came. His name was Lucas Kane, special assistant to Altera's newly appointed board chair, her. Young, discreet, and one of the few people who knew the whole story, because Elena Royce wasn't there for an interview. She had come to audit the soul of a company she helped build. 10 years earlier, Elena Royce, a rising star in global finance. She had helped design Altera's recruitment model, a system meant to prioritize skill, ethics, and long-term vision. She consulted on hiring algorithms, anonymous reviews, and talent scoring, tools to keep bias and nepotism out. It worked for a while, but after she left to run a philanthropic foundation, the system was quietly eroded. Bribes, favoritism, vanity hires, the usual rot is wrapped in silk ties and cocktail parties. And lately, disturbing reports had surfaced. Candidates rejected for looking too plain. Donation-based fast tracks. Anonymous complaints about hiring managers taking money under the table. So when Elena's investment firm acquired a 27% controlling stake in Altera, she was reappointed as chairwoman, quietly. No press, no announcement, just a silent mandate clean house. From the inside. Elena Royce is the daughter of a public school teacher and an immigrant mechanic. Full scholarship to Oxford. Double MBA from MIT. 15 years orchestrating billion-dollar acquisitions from Singapore to Boston. One of the youngest women to chair a financial board in U.S. history. Her wealth is second only to that of her husband, Nathan Royce, founder of Arcadia Tech, a cybersecurity empire. But she'd always hated attention. No red carpet, no PR stunts, no designer gowns. She preferred linen shirts and canvas bags, the kind you can trust more than a brand name. Today wasn't about money, it was about principles, and how many had been trampled in the name of exclusivity. As Lucas escorted her down the executive wing, his phone buzzed. Internal Slacks exploding. He whispered, "That photo they posted of you already viral." Caption says, "Coffee Girl crashes VP interview." Elena didn't blink. Good. Let them pile it on. The higher they climb, the harder they fall. They turned a corner and met with Gideon Price, Altera's legendary CEO, 52, steel hair, ice blue eyes, a suit like war armor. But he paused as he saw Elena. Then, "Madam Chairwoman," he said, bowing his head with rare reverence. Elena offered a slight nod. "Ready to join me? I've cleared the boardroom," Gideon said. "But maybe we should talk first." She raised an eyebrow. They humiliated a woman they thought was beneath them. "You still want to protect them, Mo," he said. "I want to watch them squirm." The three moved down the hallway. The same smug panels sat laughing in the conference room, sipping sparkling water and recounting how they'd shredded that wannabe. The door opened. Silence. Every head turned and froze. Elena walked in first, her tote still slung over her shoulder. Lucas followed, setting up the projector. Gideon closed the door behind them, slowly, deliberately. Michael Callahan stood up, confused. "Wait, what's going on?" "You again? We told you." Gideon cut him off, voice calm but cold. "Sit down." Michael, the way his name was said, final, loaded, turned Callahan ghost white. Vanessa's lipstick faded to pale. Derek dropped his pen, Everyone, Gideon said, meet Elena Royce, chairwoman of the Altera Group. Dead silence. You, you're the, Vanessa stammered. The coffee girl Elena finished for her. The one with the linen shirt and no worth. No one breathed. Lucas connected a tablet to the screen. Dozens of files appeared. Screenshots, Slack messages, bribe records, emails mocking unattractive applicants. Jared's name, Vanessa's promises, Michael's fun. Then the clip, the moment Callahan ripped Elena's resume in half, followed by his words, "You're not leadership. You're not even intern material." Elena turned, her tone sharp but poised. "I built your hiring system a decade ago. I believed in merit, fairness, vision. Today, I was treated as trash because I didn't wear the right label." She faced them fully. "So tell me, which part of your behavior reflects leadership?" No one answered. The screen behind them flicked again. Footage from a private Slack channel. Caption hat budget candidate LOL. Every message is timestamped. Every insult is traced. Vanessa looked like she might throw up. Michael muttered, This is a setup." Elena stepped forward. "No, this is accountability, and you've failed the test you didn't even know you were taking." The boardroom held its breath. The so-called coffee girl now stood center stage, not just a candidate, but the woman holding the highest authority in the building. And the people who had mocked her, they were still seated, powerless to undo what had already been exposed. Elena turned to Gideon, who gave her a respectful nod. "The floor is yours, Madam Chairwoman." She tapped the remote in her hand, advancing the screen. Behind her, a document lit up, a flowchart of Altera's recruitment fraud. At the top, 3 names in bold: Michael Callahan, Vanessa Klein, Derek Reese. Beneath their names were chat logs, flagged messages, and financial records. $200,000, Elena said, paid by Jared Hall to Michael Callahan's Executive Development Fund. In return, a position guaranteed. Michael's mouth opened, but no sound came. Elena turned, her voice sharpened. "Did you think no one would trace that payment, that no one would connect the donation timing with the recommendation Vanessa made 2 days later?" Vanessa stood up, shaky. This has to be a misunderstanding. "That fund, it's illegal," Gideon snapped. "And you're not talking your way out of this." The screen flipped again, this time a slide showing candidate ranking overrides. In multiple instances, high-performing applicants were manually downgraded for reasons like no visual brand presence, outfit too casual, not a culture fit code plain, Chairwoman, not in our demo. A hush rippled across the conference room. Even the applicants peering in through the glass, the ones who had once sneered, now looked stunned. A few stepped back, as if realizing that you're watching something historic. Elena stepped forward. "Your system isn't broken. You broke it." Piece by piece, her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Each word landed like a verdict. Altera was meant to be a fortress of merit, a place where anyone, regardless of their shoes, skin, or salary, could rise. Instead, you turned it into a runway for arrogance. Michael finally exploded. "This is insane. You're blowing up a decade of hiring over what? A joke. Some Instagram post." Gideon's gaze narrowed. "No, Michael. She's blowing it up because it's rotten." "And you just gave her the match." Vanessa's lipstick had faded completely. Her hands trembled. "Madam Chairwoman, please, this wasn't meant to hurt anyone." Elena blinked slowly. "You projected a slide mocking my clothing in the middle of an interview." She stepped closer, voice dropping. "You called my resume worthless without reading it. You laughed at my shoes. You instructed a security guard to search my bag like I was a thief. And now you're asking for Grace Derrick, who had been silent, tried to recover. Look, let's not overreact. There's no need to escalate this further. You escalated it the moment you used your power to crush someone you thought was beneath you," Elena said. "I was just the one who refused to break." The silence grew thicker. She turned back to the screen. A new file opened a confidential HR report. Complaint after complaint filed against the same hiring managers. One line was highlighted. Candidate told they were too urban to represent Altera. Another interviewer said women without heels lack executive presence. A low murmur rippled through the hall. Michael looked at Gideon. Desperate. Gideon. Come on, we've worked together for 12 years. 12 years too long. Gideon snapped. You're finished. And then, the final blow. Elena stepped to the head of the table and pulled a printed memo from her tote. This is a motion for immediate board ratification, she said, signed by a majority of directors this morning. Gideon unfolded the paper and read aloud, effective immediately. Michael Callahan, Vanessa Klein, and Derek Reese are suspended pending investigation. Access revoked, security clearance terminated. He looked at them. Pack your things. Gasps. One of the applicants covered her mouth outside. Michael stood, fists clenched. You think you can erase us like that? We built this firm. Elena's voice was cold steel. Then you should have protected its values. Security entered. Quiet. Professional. Vanessa backed away from the table. Mascara streaking. Derek didn't even resist. As they were let out, the door shut behind them with the soft finality of justice. Back inside the boardroom, Elena scanned the room. This is not just about 3 people. It's about a culture that lets them thrive. She gestured toward the projector. The footage of what happened today, already on our internal cloud, it will be shared, not to shame, but to instruct. Every manager at Altera will sit through it, frame by frame. Gideon nodded. And every leadership promotion is frozen until we complete an audit. From behind the glass walls. No one sneered anymore. Applicants who had once filmed her with disdain now lowered their eyes. And one, a woman in a muted green blazer, stepped forward and tapped on the glass, mouthing 2 words, "Thank you." The security doors hadn't entirely shut when Altera's Slack channels lit up like a battlefield. Screenshots, whispers, clips from the boardroom, all spreading within minutes. The footage of Elena standing firm, Michael's tirade, and Vanessa's collapse had already leaked. And someone, likely from the candidate pool, had live-streamed everything from their phone. The caption was simple, the woman they mocked. She owns the place. The view count was climbing past 2 million when Vanessa was escorted to her car. TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Reddit were ablaze. Hashtag Chairwoman Royce, hashtag Altera scandal, hashtag dress, code of shame. One trending video cut together clips of the panel's cruelty with dramatic music. Michael shredding her resume. Vanessa pointing at her tote. Derek's smug smirk. Then smash cut to Gideon bowing and calling her Madam Chairwoman. The internet wasn't just watching, it was choosing sides. And it was furious. Inside Altera HQ, the atmosphere was shifting by the second. Desks emptied. HR issued a temporary hold on all hiring processes. Legal teams huddled behind closed doors. Assistants scrubbed social media. Someone unplugged the espresso machine. Nobody was sipping lattes now. In the war room turned conference center, Elena stood beside Gideon, watching real-time updates on the internal dashboard. Jared Hall's offer letter was rescinded, Gideon confirmed. Scrolling, his LinkedIn just went dark. It won't be the last one, Elena said. Eyes on a live feed of HR sorting through complaints. There are dozens more complicit. We'll root them out, Gideon promised. Just then, Lucas, Elena's aide, stepped in with a tablet. He looked grim. This just dropped on Instagram, he said. Turning the screen, it was a clip of Laya Tate, the candidate in the Gucci blazer, chanting no suit. No shot in the hallway. The angle showed her throwing a dollar bill at Elena's feet. The comments were brutal. This is what elitism looks like. Altera deserves to burn. Imagine being this arrogant and this wrong. Lucas continued. TikTok stitched it with your final line in the boardroom. Then you should have protected its values. Millions of likes. Back in the candidate hallway, panic was setting in. The clique that once mocked Elena now looked hunted. Yaya was pale, scrolling through her mentions in disbelief. A junior HR rep, Emily Voss, who had smirked as Elena was mocked, whispered, "My account's been reported. I'm suspended from internal systems." One of the remaining candidates, Ethan Crane, tried to slip out a side door, only to find security waiting. "Sir, you'll need to speak with compliance." The power dynamic had flipped. The hunters were now exposed. At 3:17 p.m., an emergency all-staff meeting was called. Elena walked into the same room where she'd once been told to fetch coffee. Every executive was seated before her this time. Suits crisp, eyes downcast. The air was thick with dread. Gideon took the podium first. "What you've seen today is not just a reckoning," he said. "It's a reflection. And from this point forward, Altera will not tolerate even a shadow of what was exposed." He turned to Elena and stepped aside. She walked to the center of the room, setting her tote on the podium. Her voice was steady, her tone more surgical than emotional. "Let me be clear, this isn't about clothing. It's not about resumes. It's about rot." She paused, scanning the room. Rot that dressed itself in designer suits, that posted memes mocking the underdog, that whispered jokes about skin color, age, and background. "You thought no one was watching." She tapped her tablet. Screens behind her lit up audio transcripts, Slack threads, and HR emails were ignored. "We were watching." A collective shift, people sitting straighter, suddenly conscious of their black tabs. "You mocked me when you thought I was nothing," she continued. "Now imagine how many voices you've silenced over the years who couldn't fight back. But today, this ends." She turned to Gideon and nodded. He stepped forward and read from a printed sheet. "Effective immediately. 27 individuals have been placed under investigation, 11 of them terminated for cause. Another 16 suspended pending further audit." You could hear a pin drop. "These include internal recruiters, department heads, junior and senior managers, and 4 executives." Elena added, "This is not symbolic, it's structural." The names flashed on the screen. Those who had laughed, silenced, suppressed. Among them, Vanessa Klein, Michael Callahan, Derek Reese, Leah Tate, Emily Voss next to each. Their role, infraction, and current status terminated, suspended, under review. The final blow came at 3:45 p.m. Elena returned to the front. And for those wondering about what's next, Altera isn't burning down, it's being rebuilt. She held up a sleek black folder, embossed with the Altera seal. "The Royce Standard," she said. "A new hiring and promotion policy, effective today." The screens changed again, displaying the key pillars. Anonymous review resumed, stripped of names, schools, and photos. Ethics scoring is weighted equally with performance. Social behavior audit before promotion. Bystander accountability policy. Silence is complicity. No private hiring groups or back-channel referrals. The reactions were a mix of awe and fear. Some clapped, others sat frozen. But no one, not a single soul, dared laugh. As the meeting ended, Elena lingered in the now quiet room. Gideon walked over, voice low. "You didn't just flip the script." "No," she said. "I rewrote it." By the following morning, the Royce Standard was more than a policy. It was a movement. The news broke globally before 9 a.m. Every major outlet, CNBC, Bloomberg, the New York Times, ran headlines like "Wall Street Giant shakes up hiring Altera," "CEO bows to woman," "Mocked at interview from linen shirt to boardroom power." The Elena Royce Standard goes global. LinkedIn posts about the shift had crossed 30 million views by lunchtime. Recruiters from Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, and even Google reposted with hashtags like #Royce Standard and #Merit First. But inside Altera, the real work had only begun. The Royce Standard wasn't just a list of suggestions, but a mandate. And Elena made that crystal clear. On the 24th floor, in a glass-walled conference room now dubbed the Royce Room, department heads sat through their first compliance debrief. Elena stood at the front with no PowerPoint or podium, just her tote bag on a table and a whiteboard behind her. "This isn't a diversity campaign," she said. "It's a structural detox. And detox hurts." Someone in the back, a VP in real estate investments, raised his hand timidly. "So, are we expected to overhaul every promotion process?" Elena didn't blink. "No, you're expected to justify every one of them. If a 22-year-old legacy hire with a Wall Street surname gets fast-tracked over a 30-year-old immigrant analyst with better numbers, you'll explain that under oath if needed." Silence. Then, "And by the way," she added, "nepotism isn't culture. It's cowardice in a suit." Across the room, shoulders sank. The message was clear. Hiding behind the old playbook was no longer safe. Within 48 hours, Elena's internal audit teams, led by Lucas and a group of external ethics investigators, began reviewing hiring data from the last 5 years. What they found shattered any illusion that Altera's problems were isolated. One region had recycled the same 6 surnames through 3 executive roles. Another had excluded every candidate from public colleges without explanation. A manager in Frankfurt had conducted 17 interviews without a single female applicant passing the first round, and joked about it in Slack. His nickname was the Filter, Lucas said grimly. Guess what? He's filtered out. Meanwhile, candidates who had once been quietly rejected received surprising emails. We've reviewed your application under our updated protocol and would like to reinitiate your interview process. Elena insisted that senior staff make those calls personally, not bots or assistants. Respect had to be rebuilt, person to person. Of course, not everyone welcomed the Royce standard with open arms. In one executive corridor, a finance director muttered, "She's turning this place into a social experiment." A middle manager responded, "It's not about fairness, it's about feelings now." Word got back to Elena. She didn't respond with anger. She responded with access revocations. "You don't need credentials to feel empathy," she said publicly. "But if you lack both, you won't last here." And one by one, they didn't by week's end. 62 employees had either resigned or been removed. The shift wasn't subtle. Davos called. They didn't just invite Elena. They gave her a keynote. On stage, flanked by Fortune 500 CEOs and G20 financial ministers. She spoke in the same calm, surgical tone that had gutted the Altera boardroom. "Bias doesn't always shout," she said. "Sometimes it whispers behind closed doors and ensures certain people never walk through them." She paused. "Well, I broke the door down, and I'm not sorry." The room of power brokers gave her a standing ovation. Within 72 hours, Goldman Sachs issued a press release adopting blind review trials based on Royce's system. JP Morgan began auditing 3 years of hiring logs. A Japanese conglomerate rewrote its promotion matrix, publicly thanking Elena by name. Even Microsoft's Satya Nadella tweeted, "Culture is what happens when no one is looking." Elena Royce just reminded us all. Hashtag Royce Standard trended globally for 4 straight days. Back at Altera, employees weren't just adapting, they were awakening. In the break rooms and stairwells, conversations shifted. People asked, why did we ever think Gucci loafers made someone CEO material? Why did we assume a linen shirt meant intern? How many Elenas have we walked past and laughed at? Elena knew not everyone would get it, but she didn't need everyone. She needed enough to rebuild. So she held open forums. Any employee could show up. No hierarchy. No suit required. The only dress code now, she said, is courage. On her desk sat a growing stack of handwritten, typed, and even painted letters. From women, from men, from interns, janitors, former military, and first-generation college grads. One note read, "I wore my brother's suit to my first finance interview. I saw your story. I cried in a stairwell. Thank you for making me feel like I'm allowed to belong." Another simply said, "I got the job. They saw me, not my heels. Because of you." Elena read every single one and replied to as many as she could, because while the world had made her a symbol, she hadn't forgotten what it felt like to be mocked, invisible, by the end of the month. Altera's culture looked almost unrecognizable. The chandelier still hung in the lobby, but now it caught the light of something more profound, not just prestige, but progress. And at the center of it all, Elena, still in flats, still carrying her linen tote, stood as proof that systems can change, and that the underestimated are often the most powerful. Elena Royce never wanted to be famous. She didn't crave hashtags or headlines. But something had shifted across the entire power infrastructure within Altera or Wall Street. The day her Royce Standard went global, she didn't celebrate, she didn't post, she didn't even check the stock price. She walked back into Altera's headquarters through the front doors, same as always. This time, no one dared direct her to the side entrance. The lobby had changed. Gone were the leather-bound recruitment brochures full of yacht parties and Rolex wrists. In their place, stories. Portraits of real employees, immigrants, veterans, single parents, late bloomers. Under the words, "We don't hire for image, we hire for impact." The woman at reception stood up immediately as Elena approached. "Welcome back. Chairwoman, she said. Conference room's ready. Elena nodded. Just Elena today. She passed a group of interns gathered near the espresso bar. One of them gasped quietly and whispered, "That's her." Another pulled out a tattered notebook, the Royce Standard printed on the front in bold Sharpie. A third, with a trembling voice, asked, "Can I shake your hand?" Elena smiled. "Only if you promise to make more noise than I did at your first interview." Upstairs, Gideon Price, still CEO, still wearing his minimalist navy suits and thoughtful silence, stood by the window of the 49th floor executive suite. He turned when he heard the door click. "It's quieter now," he said. Elena raised an eyebrow. "Is that good or bad?" "It's what change sounds like." "I think." They stood in silence, watching the city pulse beneath them. "You made enemies," Gideon finally said. Elena shrugged. "I made mirrors. Some people just didn't like what they saw." In the months following the initial purge, Elena conducted what many inside Altera called the silent revolution. Entire departments were rebuilt. The HR team was restaffed with independent auditors and ex-civil rights lawyers. Annual reviews were now evaluated blind. Bonus structures changed, less tied to profit, more to mentorship and integrity metrics. Vanessa Klein, the senior manager who once laughed at Elena's tote bag, never returned. Her name became a ghost, whispered, never spoken aloud. Callahan, the bribe-taking director, lost his job and his license to work in finance again. Jared Hall, the smug candidate who mocked Elena to her face, had his private emails made public during legal proceedings. He now worked freelance on spreadsheets for small startups. When they'd have him, none of them made a public apology. Elena never demanded one. Elena, accountability, she once said to the Financial Times, is louder than an apology. At the next annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, Elena delivered the opening speech, dressed in a charcoal blazer and her signature cream linen shirt. She spoke without slides or scripts. "Don't hire people who look like success," she said. "Hire people who've had to fight for it, because when you give power to someone powerless, you don't just diversify your boardroom, you fireproof your legacy." After the speech, 20 CEOs committed to blind recruitment policies. 10 global banks launched ethics task forces named Royce Councils. And in a quiet office in Sao Paulo, a young woman with a speech impediment cried as she read the transcript of Elena's speech. "She looks like me," she said to her mother. And they listened to her back in Altera. The conference room where Elena had once been humiliated was now an open mentorship space. A plaque on the door read, "The Royce Room." This is where standards were raised. The original chair where she sat that day, simple, gray, unpadded, had not been replaced, but it had been moved to the center of the room and preserved under glass. On the wall beside it, the original, shredded copy of her resume, taped back together, now framed. Next to it, a quote, "You judged me by my shirt. Now the world judges you by your silence." Elena's daily routine never changed much. She still walked to work when she could, still carrying the same linen tote, and kept a copy of The Wealth of Nations tucked in the inside pocket. She refused offers to turn her story into a book, a Netflix series, or a speaking tour. "I'm not a brand," she told one producer. "I'm a consequence." One morning, as she exited a board meeting, a janitor named Marcus stopped her. "Miss Royce," he said, severely, "I just wanted to say, before all this, I thought no one saw me." Elena smiled gently. "I see you. We see you now." He blinked hard to keep from crying. She didn't hug him, just nodded. That was enough. Late one evening, alone in her office, Elena opened a letter from her daughter. The 12-year-old had written it during a school project titled, "Who is Your Hero, Mom? I saw that video of you in the linen shirt. Everyone laughed at you, but you didn't yell. You didn't cry. You just waited. And then you changed the world. When I grow up, I want to wear linen too." Elena closed the letter and smiled, not because of the power, not because of the policy, but because for the first time in her life, she knew she'd left something behind that couldn't be shredded or mocked or posted online. She left a standard, and the world would have to live up to it. Thank you for watching the story of Elena Royce, a simple woman who was humiliated at her job interview sometimes. The most powerful person in the room is the one you chose to overlook. Elena Royce didn't raise her voice. She raised a standard, and she reminded the world that dignity doesn't come from suits, titles, or resumes. It comes from knowing who you are when no one else does. If this story moved, challenged, or made you think twice about how we judge others, don't just scroll on. Like, share, and hit subscribe to join Alive Stories. We tell the truths most people ignore and bring justice to life, one story at a time. Because absolute power doesn't scream, it endures. See you in the following video.